My name is Kimberly Brooks. I'm 71 years old, and my world collapsed one night when I heard my daughter-in-law's voice over the phone. Tomorrow we're taking her to the nursing home. Everything's been arranged. My blood froze. I grabbed my purse, slung it over my shoulder, and slipped out through the back door. The next morning, they searched everywhere in a panic, but it was far too late for regret. For the past 5 years, I had lived with my son, Caleb Michael Turner, and his wife, Isabella Marie Turner, in a quiet neighborhood on the north side of Chicago. I thought it was home. I thought it was family. How wrong I was. It all began after I became a widow. Caleb had shown up on my doorstep with tears in his eyes, saying he couldn't let me live alone, that I was his only family, that he needed me nearby. His words touched me so deeply that I sold my condo in Wicker Park and moved in with them. At first, everything seemed perfect. Caleb was affectionate. Isabella smiled when she saw me, and I felt useful helping around the house and caring for them. But slowly, the smiles faded. Sweet words turned sharp, hugs became hollow gestures, and I, foolishly, kept believing it was just a rough patch that would pass. Isabella was the first to reveal her true face. It started with what seemed like harmless remarks. "Kimberly, don't you think you've been eating a little too much? Or maybe you should stay in your room when we have guests. The house looks tidier that way." Caleb never contradicted her. In fact, he agreed. "Mom, Isabella's right. You should rest more." Rest. That was their favorite word whenever they wanted me to disappear. The months went by, and the humiliations grew. Isabella stopped cooking for me. "If you want something special, you can make it yourself," she said with that perfectly practiced fake smile. Caleb pretended not to notice when he came home from work and saw my plate still untouched on the table while they finished dinner. "You've eaten, right, Mom?" he'd ask distractedly, not expecting an answer. One night, while washing dishes after they'd gone upstairs, I heard their voices through the wall. "You can't keep this up forever," Isabella said. "It's too much of a burden." "I know," Caleb replied, "but she's my mom." "Exactly your mom, not mine. And I didn't marry you to become a nurse for the elderly." My hands trembled, the plate slipped and almost broke. A nurse for the elderly. That's how she saw me. Not a mother-in-law. Not a grandmother-to-be. Just a burden. The following weeks were pure hell. Isabella started acting as if I didn't exist, walking past me without a glance. When I spoke, she replied with one-word answers or ignored me completely. Caleb wasn't much better. He'd come home, kiss Isabella, and greet me with a nod like I was a stranger in my own house. But what hurt most was the way they talked about me when they thought I couldn't hear. "She's slowing down," Isabella said. "Yesterday it took her an hour to do something she used to finish in 20 minutes. Maybe we should look into other options," Caleb replied hesitantly. Options. That word haunted me through sleepless nights. I never dared to ask, but deep down, I already knew the answer. What they didn't know, what they'd never bothered to find out, was that I had secrets of my own. Secrets I'd kept close, waiting for the day I might need them. During my 60-year marriage, my late husband and I had been very careful with our money. We had properties, investments, and savings accounts that had quietly grown over the years. When I sold my condo to move in with Caleb, I didn't spend that money. I invested it, and it had grown considerably. And there was something else they didn't know, something that could change everything if I ever decided to reveal it. That night, while pretending to sleep in my small room, at the end of the hall, I heard footsteps in the kitchen. Isabella was speaking softly on the phone. I got up quietly and moved to the door. Her words cut through the air like knives. "Yes, I talked to the director. They can take her tomorrow." Caleb agrees. "We just need her to sign the papers." A pause. My heart was pounding so hard I was sure she could hear it. "No, she doesn't know anything. Tomorrow we'll tell her it's just a visit to check the place out. Once she's there, it'll be easier to convince her to stay." Another pause, longer this time. "If she feels bad about it, well, that's too bad. We've been carrying her for 5 years. It's time she lived her own life somewhere more suitable." My knees nearly buckled. They were planning to send me to a nursing home without asking, without giving me a choice, as if I were a piece of old furniture they wanted to get rid of. I knew I had to act. I couldn't sit there waiting for morning to come and be dragged away like an animal to slaughter. Very slowly, I went back to my room and grabbed my purse. Inside were my most important documents, some cash, and my phone. It was all I needed for now. I waited until I heard Isabella go upstairs and close the bedroom door. Then, like a thief in my own home, I tiptoed to the back door. The night air was cool against my skin. For the first time in years, I took a deep breath and felt something close to freedom. I didn't know exactly where I was going, but I knew one thing for certain: I would never be anyone's victim again. I walked through dark streets for nearly an hour before hailing a cab. I told the driver to take me to the most luxurious hotel in the city, the one in the Gold Coast district. If they wanted to treat me like a helpless old woman, it was time to remind them who I really was. The front desk clerk looked surprised when I arrived in the middle of the night with just a single bag, but my credit card spoke for itself. I booked the presidential suite for 2 nights to start. I sat on that king-size bed in a suite that cost more per night than Caleb made in a week. And for the first time in years, I smiled, truly smiled. The next morning, my phone started buzzing. Caleb. I let it ring. He called again and again. Then came the messages. "Mom, where are you? We're worried. Please, answer. Worried. How convenient." Then Isabella called too, her voice frantic on voicemail. "Kimberly, please come home. We don't know what happened." Caleb's desperate. Desperate? Probably because their plan had fallen apart. I ordered breakfast in my room: eggs Benedict, smoked salmon, fresh fruit, and brewed coffee. Sitting on the balcony overlooking the city, I imagined Caleb and Isabella running through the house, calling hospitals, maybe even the police. Let them worry. Let them feel even a fraction of the pain they'd caused me for years. After breakfast, I made a few important calls. The first was to my bank. I wanted to know exactly how much money I had. The amount surprised even me. The investments had grown far more than I'd expected. The second call was more delicate. I dialed the number of Daniel Robert Collins, Esquire, one of the city's best family lawyers. "This is Kimberly Brooks," I said when he answered. His voice sounded surprised. "Mrs. Brooks, how are you? I need to see you urgently, Mr. Collins. It's a complicated family matter." "Of course. You can come by this afternoon. I'll be here." The third call was the most important. I dialed a number I'd kept for over 5 years, since moving in with Caleb. On the other end was Patricia Lynn Morgan, my longtime real estate agent. "Kimberly, what a surprise to hear from you. How are you, my friend? Patricia, I need a special favor. Do you remember that downtown property you once said would be perfect for me if I ever wanted to be independent again?" As we talked, my phone kept vibrating, with missed calls: 14 from Caleb, 8 from Isabella. They even called the emergency contact number of my late husband, which I still kept in my phone. How desperate it must feel when control slips from your hands. That afternoon, I walked through the hotel lobby, wearing my best pearl gray suit and polished leather shoes. I'd booked a full beauty treatment, manicure, pedicure, haircut, and styling. If I was preparing for war, I would look flawless doing it. The hairstylist, a young woman named Leah, glanced at me curiously. "Special occasion, ma'am?" "You could say that," I replied. It was the first day of the rest of my life. As Leah worked on my hair, I thought about the past 5 years, how I had allowed myself to be treated that way, how I had stopped valuing who I was. The answer was painful but clear. The moment I believed being a burden was better than being alone. But I wasn't alone anymore. I had money, I had resources, and above all, I had the truth on my side. That afternoon, I went to Mr. Collins's office. His firm occupied the 25th floor of a skyscraper in the financial district on LaSalle Street. The windows offered a panoramic view of the city, and from there, I could even see the neighborhood where Caleb lived. "Kimberly, you look radiant," Collins said as he poured coffee, "but something tells me this isn't a social visit." I told him everything, the conversation I'd overheard, the plan to send me away, and my midnight escape. Collins took notes, his expression growing more serious with every detail. "This is very serious," he said. What they were planning could qualify as elder abuse, especially if they intended to do it without your consent. "What options do I have?" I asked. "Plenty," he said. "But first tell me something. Do they know your real financial situation?" "Not at all. Caleb thinks I'm a poor widow living off his generosity." Collins smiled for the first time in our meeting. "Then we have a considerable advantage." He explained my legal options: restraining orders, emotional abuse lawsuits, even criminal charges if we could prove intent to institutionalize me against my will. "But I have another idea," I continued. "What if we teach them a lesson they'll never forget?" His eyes lit up with a spark that immediately pleased me. He nodded, ready to hear the plan. We would show them exactly the worth of the woman they had tried to discard, but we'd do it publicly, decisively, and completely within the law. I left his office with a plan that would take a few weeks to execute, but one worth every minute of waiting. Back at the hotel, I finally decided to answer one of Caleb's calls. "Mom, thank God. Where are you? We've been looking everywhere. Isabella's been crying. We thought something terrible had happened to you." His voice sounded genuinely worried, almost convincing. Almost. I just needed to go for a walk and clear my head. "A walk? It's been over 12 hours. Where exactly are you?" "In a safe place. Don't worry about me." "Mom, please, come home. We can talk about whatever's bothering you." "Talk?" I said. "Sure, Caleb. You're right. We do need to talk, but not over the phone, in person, and when I'm ready." "When will that be?" "Soon. Very soon." I hung up before he could reply. That night, sitting in my suite overlooking the city lights, I dined on lobster and toasted myself for the woman I had been, the woman I was reclaiming, and the woman I was becoming. Caleb and Isabella had made a fatal mistake. They had underestimated the wrong woman. The days that followed were a blend of strategic preparation and personal rediscovery. Every morning, I woke up in that luxurious suite, ordered breakfast in bed, and worked on my battle plan while Caleb and Isabella continued calling frantically. Their messages evolved from concern to pleading, to something dangerously close to veiled threats. "Mom, this isn't funny," Caleb wrote in his last message. "Isabella's having a breakdown. You need to come home right now, or we'll have to take more drastic measures." More drastic measures like dragging me to a nursing home by force? How predictable they were. But there was something they didn't know, something I'd learned in my meetings with Mr. Collins. It turned out the house they'd been living in all these years, the house Caleb thought was his, had a far more complicated legal history. When my husband died, that property was placed in a trust with me as the sole beneficiary. Caleb could live there only while I was alive and consented, but legally, the house was mine. He had never bothered to read the full will. Why would he? After all, I was just his poor, dependent mother. On the 4th day of my disappearance, I decided it was time to move to the next phase. Patricia had found me the perfect penthouse in the most exclusive neighborhood of the city, fully furnished, complete with concierge service. "It's a dream," she said as we toured the place. 2 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, a balcony with a jacuzzi, and the most spectacular view of the skyline. "When can I move in?" "Whenever you want. The owner's eager to rent to someone trustworthy." I signed the lease that same afternoon, paying 2 years in advance in cash. Leaving the real estate office, I took a cab to the city's most luxurious shopping center. It was time to reinvent myself. For years I dressed like the poor widow they imagined me to be. Worn clothes, muted colors, comfortable but shapeless shoes. That ended today. At an upscale boutique, a saleswoman named Leah greeted me with that polite, slightly dismissive smile reserved for customers who didn't look like they could afford anything. "How can I help you, ma'am?" "I need an entirely new wardrobe. Business outfits, cocktail dresses, shoes, accessories, the works." Her expression changed the moment I handed her my black credit card. 2 hours later, I walked out with 8 shopping bags filled with clothes worth more than Caleb earned in 3 months. Emerald green, cherry red, golden yellow, deep violet. I no longer wore sad colors. That night, while arranging my new clothes, the phone rang. A strange number appeared on the screen. "Hello, Mrs. Brooks. This is Detective Richard Morris from the police department. Your son, Caleb Turner, has reported you missing. Can you confirm that you're safe?" They had escalated it all the way to the police. "Detective Morris, I'm perfectly fine. I'm fully aware and resting. There's no missing person here. I'm in the city, in a safe place, and I left home by my own choice. I don't wish to be disturbed until I'm ready." "Understood, ma'am. Anything else you'd like us to note?" "Yes. If my son or his wife continue filing false reports, I'll consider it harassment." The silence on the other end said enough. The next day, I moved into my penthouse. The movers arrived at the hotel to collect a few of my belongings. It amazed me how little one truly needs to start over. The new home was everything Patricia had promised, and more. From the balcony, the city stretched endlessly beneath me. I poured myself a glass of red wine and toasted to my independence. The real satisfaction came that afternoon when I decided to answer another one of Caleb's calls. "Mom, thank God. The police said you're safe, but we need to talk." "Where are you?" "At my new home, Caleb." "Your new home? What are you talking about?" "I've moved out. I have my own apartment now." Silence hung between us. "With what money?" "Mom, you can't afford to live alone. Please come home before you do something you'll regret." "My house." How interesting that he used that phrase. "What do you mean, Caleb?" "Nothing, Mom. Sometimes words reveal more than we intend." "You're not making any sense. Isabella thinks you need to see a doctor." And there it was, Isabella's true face. "Oh? That's very considerate of her to worry about my mental health. She just wants what's best for you. We both do. How dare they talk about sending me to a nursing home?" The silence that followed was deafening. "I know exactly what you meant." I cut him off. "You've both discussed how much easier life would be if you got rid of your burden, haven't you?" Where did you get that idea? Straight from your wife's mouth, Caleb. The night she called someone in the middle of the night, arranging my future like I was an old piece of furniture to be thrown out. Another tense pause. Mom, if you misheard, he started, but there's no excuse for the inexcusable. You want to see me? He finally asked. We need to talk face to face. Fine, I'll agree, but when I decide, where I decide, and on my terms. When? And. Soon, son. Very soon. And when we meet, you'll learn a few things about your widowed mother that will surprise you. I hung up before he could respond. That night, dining on the balcony under the stars, I called Collins. How's our project going? Better than expected, Kimberly. I've found some rather interesting details about Caleb and Isabella's finances. It turned out they had been living far beyond their means for years, overdue credit cards, personal loans, and a second mortgage. They had used my presence in their home to justify their reckless spending. There's more, Collins added. Isabella's been telling friends that you suffer from memory loss and need special care. She's been building a narrative to justify putting you in a facility. My blood boiled. Do you have proof? I'm gathering it. When you do, they'll regret it. I hung up, smiling. Caleb and Isabella had no idea what was life coming. A week after moving into the penthouse, I had already established a new rhythm. Breakfast on the balcony, workouts in the building gym, afternoons with Collins to move our plan forward. For the first time in years, I felt alive, strong, and in control of my destiny. Caleb had stopped calling after our last conversation, but Isabella called even more, her voicemails growing increasingly desperate. Kimberly, please come back. Caleb's a mess. He barely eats, barely sleeps. Our family is falling apart. Our family. How ironic. I knew she was lying. Then one Thursday night, a message caught my attention. Kimberly, I have to be honest. Caleb is considering filing for legal guardianship, claiming you're no longer mentally competent. He says your recent behavior proves you can't make rational decisions. Please come home before things go too far. It was Isabella, her threat neatly wrapped in concern. I forwarded the message to Collins immediately. Perfect, he said. That's exactly what we needed. They're digging their own grave. If Caleb tries to file that petition, we can sue for defamation and elder abuse. And that'll be the perfect moment to reveal your true financial status. I was ready for phase 2. Everything was in place. Are you certain about this? Asked attorney Daniel Robert Collins. Absolutely. I want them to feel the same humiliation they made me feel that night. The plan was simple but devastating. My friend and real estate agent, Patricia Lynn Morgan, had organized a luxury property showcase at the city's most elegant venue, the Grand Mayfair Hotel. Caleb and Isabella were invited under the pretense of an exclusive investment opportunity. They had no idea I was the keynote speaker. The day arrived faster than I expected. I wore my new emerald green suit, high heels, and a set of jewelry I'd bought just for the occasion. In the mirror, I saw a woman I barely recognized, poised, powerful, and in complete control. I arrived an hour early. The ballroom gleamed with polished tables, glossy brochures, champagne glasses, and a large screen displaying the presentation slides. Patricia was checking the final details when Collins entered, carrying a folder. "Ready for your big debut?" he asked. "More than ready," I replied. Guests began to arrive, business people, investors, financiers. Then I saw them. Caleb, wearing the same suit he used for weddings and funerals. Isabella, trying too hard in a red dress that looked like a clearance find. Among the polished crowd, They looked painfully out of place. I watched from a distance as they searched for whoever had invited them, their faces a mix of tension and anticipation. They must have thought someone had finally recognized their so-called investment potential. Patricia stepped onto the small stage to open the evening. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our exclusive real estate showcase. Tonight, we're proud to present some of the most exceptional investment opportunities in the city. Caleb and Isabella smiled stiffly, pretending to blend in. Then Patricia continued, "Before we begin, I'd like to introduce a remarkable woman, a visionary investor who has recently expanded her real estate portfolio in extraordinary ways. Please welcome Mrs. Kimberly Brooks." Applause filled the room as I walked up to the stage. From that vantage point, I could see their faces clearly. First came confusion, disbelief that their poor, widowed mother could possibly be here. Then recognition it was really me. Transformed. Finally horror as they realized what was happening. "Good evening," I began, my voice steady and clear. In recent years, I've learned much about the true value of people, and sometimes the ones closest to us understand us the least. I looked directly at Caleb and Isabella. Their faces went pale. I'd like to share my story because it demonstrates the importance of maintaining financial independence at any age. The room fell silent. 5 years ago, I moved in with my son and his wife. I sold my home, thinking it would be comforting to live surrounded by family. What I didn't realize was that my presence would soon become a burden to them. A murmur rippled through the audience. 2 weeks ago, I overheard a phone call. My daughter-in-law was arranging to place me in a nursing home without my consent. Her exact words were, "Tomorrow we'll take her. Everything's ready." You could hear a pin drop. Some guests exchanged uneasy glances, trying to guess who in the crowd the story was about. Caleb shifted as if to leave, but Isabella held him back, knowing that walking out would only confirm their guilt. That night, I continued, I decided I would no longer be a victim. I would remind them that the woman they tried to discard still had resources, and plenty of them. Colin stepped beside the stage with a folder in hand. "Tonight," I said, "I purchased 3 of the properties featured here: a penthouse in the financial district, an estate in the mountains, and a commercial building downtown. Total investment, several $1,000,000, paid in cash." The room went completely still. Caleb looked ready to faint. Isabella's mouth fell open. "Consider this a lesson," I said calmly. "Never underestimate the elderly, and never assume you know everything about someone." I stepped down amid thunderous applause. The crowd hung on every detail. As I approached Caleb and Isabella, several guests recognized them, their expressions a mix of curiosity and disdain. "Hello, son," I said gently. Caleb looked at me as if he'd seen a ghost, his face shifting from white to red to a sickly shade of green. Isabella stood frozen. "Mom, what is this? What's going on?" "This, my son, is the truth you never cared to learn." Guests pretended to browse brochures while eavesdropping. Patricia smiled slightly. "So these are the relatives you told me about? The ones who said you needed special care?" Isabella's voice trembled. "Kimberly, I don't understand. Since when do you have this much money?" "Since always, Isabella. But you and your husband never asked, never cared to find out." Caleb stepped closer. "Mom, if you had money, why didn't you tell us? We could have." "Could have what, Caleb? Treated me better? Or just found new ways to use me?" An older man stepped forward. "Excuse me, ma'am. Is it true they plan to put you in a nursing home without your consent?" "Absolutely true. I said, without taking my eyes off Caleb. My daughter-in-law said it herself. Everything's ready. The man shook his head. That's elder abuse. They should be in jail. Isabella flushed crimson. That's not true. We only wanted what's best for her. We thought she needed care. Care? I raised my voice. Ignoring me at dinner? Making me feel invisible in my own house? Or discussing how inconvenient I'd become? The crowd thickened, some even recording on their phones. Kimberly, please, Caleb begged. Everyone's watching. Can we talk in private? Private? Like the private conversation you two had about my future behind my back? Collins approached, his tone calm and even. Mrs. Brooks, shall I present the documents now? What documents? Isabella asked, her voice shaking. The documents proving that the house you've been living in for 5 years is legally mine, I said evenly. The room froze. Caleb looked as if he'd been struck. Mom, what are you talking about? When your father passed, he placed that property in a trust under my name. You're allowed to live there as long as I'm alive and agree, but legally, it belongs to me. Isabella swayed. That's impossible. Collins opened the folder. Here are the official trust documents, notarized and registered. Mrs. Kimberly Brooks is the legal owner. Caleb took the papers, his hands shaking. But Dad said the house would be mine. Your father said you could live there and take care of your mother. That doesn't mean you own it. A sophisticated woman stepped forward. Excuse me, I'm Laura Jenkins from the Financial Herald. Would you be willing to share your story for publication? Of course, I replied. I think people should know what can happen when children believe they have the right to make decisions for their parents. Caleb grabbed my arm. Mom, please, don't make this public. We can fix this privately. I gently removed his hand from my arm, just like the way you and Isabella privately decided my future. Without asking, without involving me, treating me like something to be discarded. That's not true, Isabella shouted, losing control. We took care of you for 5 years. We gave you a home, food, everything you needed. My voice turned cold. In my own house, you gave me a home? The crowd murmured with outrage. It was clear whose side they were on the older woman betrayed by her own family. Reporter Laura Jenkins spoke up again. Mrs. Brooks, what are your plans now? I smiled calmly. I'll live my life my way, in my own home, with my own money. And I'll make sure my story serves as a warning for every senior facing the same situation. Caleb lowered his head, defeated. What about us? Where will we live? I answered as I walked toward the exit. A good question, son. Maybe you should have thought about that before trying to send your mother to a nursing home. The following days were a media storm. The story of the millionaire grandma betrayed by her family went viral across social media. The video from the showcase was shared thousands of times, and my phone never stopped ringing with interview requests. But what satisfied me most was watching Caleb and Isabella scramble to repair their image. Isabella opened a new Instagram account to tell her side of the story. In tearful videos, she begged for understanding. People don't know the truth. We loved Kimberly like family. We only wanted the best for her. Nursing homes today are wonderful places for seniors to make friends and receive professional care. No one believed her. The comment section exploded with outrage. You don't plot over the phone in the middle of the night if it's out of love, that's abuse. How did you not know she had money? You never cared about who she really was. One person wrote, My grandma used to say, a family that betrays once will betray forever. Caleb switched tactics. He began calling me, leaving increasingly desperate messages. Mom, things are getting out of control. Isabella's getting death threats online. People recognize us on the street and yell insults. Please, Mom, say something to calm the public down. Calm the public down? After 5 years of humiliation, now they wanted me to defend them? The irony almost made me laugh. A week later, another message arrived. Mom, we lost our jobs. Isabella was fired after the company found out about the story. I got laid off too because the family scandal hurt the company's image. We can't afford the rent. Please, help us. How predictable their voices only turned sweet when they needed something. That afternoon, I prepared for the biggest television interview of my life, the top-rated morning show in the country. Laura Jenkins had arranged for the filming to take place live at my penthouse, giving viewers a glimpse of my new life. I chose a deep purple dress, delicate jewelry, and flawless makeup. When the crew arrived, the apartment looked like a page from an interior design magazine. We're live in 3, 2, 1. Good morning, I'm Patricia Hill, and today I'm joined by Mrs. Kimberly Brooks, the woman whose story has moved millions. Mrs. Brooks, how do you feel after everything that has happened? Patricia, I feel free for the first time in 71 years. Free to live without apologizing for existing, free to make my own choices, free to be treated with the respect I deserve. Your daughter-in-law, Isabella Turner, said that she and your son only wanted to protect you, that putting you in a nursing home was for your own good. I smiled faintly. When someone arranges your future behind your back in the middle of the night without asking, that's not protection, it's control. And when that person has treated you like a burden for years, it's hard to believe it's out of love. Do you have any advice for older adults in similar situations? Yes. I'd tell them it's never too late to reclaim their dignity. Don't let anyone make you feel like a burden. And most importantly, keep control over your life and your finances. We've heard your son is still trying to contact you? Yes, Caleb has been calling, especially after they lost their jobs. And what are you planning to do? I'm not a vindictive person, but I'm not naive either. For 5 years they treated me like I was invisible, believing I depended on them. Now that they know I have money, suddenly I matter again. Do you plan to reconcile with them? A true reconciliation requires a sincere apology, acknowledgement of the harm done, and real change in behavior. So far, all I've received are excuses. Isabella claims the consequences have been too severe, that losing their jobs was punishment enough. I leaned forward slightly, my tone calm but firm. Patricia, do you know what too severe really looks like? It's planning to send your mother-in-law to a nursing home without her consent. That's what's too severe. What's next for you? I'm considering creating a foundation to help elderly people who experience abuse within their families. I want my experience to become a shield for others. One last question, Mrs. Brooks. Do you have any regrets? I thought for a moment, then answered. I only regret letting them treat me poorly for so long. I regret wasting 5 years feeling like a burden when I was always independent and strong. But I don't regret taking back control of my life. After the broadcast, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Hundreds of messages poured in from viewers sharing their own stories, thanking me for speaking up. But the message that caught my attention came from an unknown number. Mrs. Brooks, this is David Miller, investigative journalist. I have information about your son's finances that I believe you'll want to see. Can we meet? I smiled as I called him back. Caleb and Isabella had no idea what was coming. The meeting with Richard opened a new chapter I hadn't expected. He arrived at the penthouse with a thick folder and a serious look that immediately put me on alert. Mrs. Brooks, he began, After your interview, I did some digging into your family, and what I found is pretty serious." He laid the folder open on the table. "For the past 5 years, Caleb and Isabella have been using your name to take out loans and receive financial benefits. They claimed you were a dependent with cognitive decline, which allowed them to get government assistance, tax breaks, and low-interest loans." My blood boiled. "You're telling me they made money by pretending I had a mental illness?" "Exactly. These are their tax filings for the past 3 years, fake medical deductions, elderly care benefits they never provided, and loans approved under the excuse of medical expenses. There are also fabricated medical invoices and psychiatric reports." I scanned the papers, my eyes widening. "There was even a fake psychiatrist's report diagnosing me with dementia. Where did you get these?" "I have sources in the agencies involved. Once your story went public, people who had stayed silent started coming forward." He placed more papers on the table. "It gets worse. Isabella ran a blog for 2 years called Living with Kimberly, the diary of a devoted daughter-in-law. It chronicled her touching journey caring for her mother-in-law with dementia. I skimmed a few entries and felt sick. Today, Kimberly had another panic episode. She forgot where she put her medicine and accused me of hiding it. It's hard to stay calm when the illness makes her so unpredictable. Caleb is exhausted, working all day and coming home to care for her mood swings. But we carry on because of love. The doctor says her condition will only worsen. We're considering professional care. It breaks our hearts, but it may be for the best." "All fabricated?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "Completely. And the blog made money advertising revenue, affiliate links, even a donation page for Kimberly's medical expenses. They've earned about $100,000 over the last 2 years. I was speechless. Not only had they planned to send me away, they'd profited off lies about me for years. "There's more," Richard continued, placing another document on the table. "Isabella also launched a crowdfunding campaign a few months ago. She asked for donations to renovate their home, to make it safer for someone with dementia. So far, they've raised about $50,000. I rose from my seat and walked to the window. The city view that once soothed me now blurred in anger. "With all this evidence, what can I do legally?" I asked. "A lot," Richard said. "This qualifies as fraud, embezzlement, defamation, and elder abuse. We can build a solid case that could lead to criminal charges." My phone rang. It was Caleb, probably his 10th call that week. This time, I answered. "Mom, thank God you picked up. We need to talk urgently." "I'm busy, Caleb." "Mom, please. Isabella's having panic attacks. People online are posting our address. Someone threw eggs at the house last night. You can't be okay with this happening to us. We're still your family." "Family?" I said coldly. "The family that diagnosed me with dementia for financial gain?" A long silence followed. "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about Isabella's blog, the fake tax returns. The loans you both got by lying about my condition." "Mom, I didn't know anything about that. You didn't know about the blog Living with Kimberly where your wife wrote that I had dementia and caused chaos? You didn't know about the so-called medical donations or the fake prescriptions used for tax deductions?" The silence this time was suffocating. "Caleb," I said, "sitting in front of me right now is an investigative journalist holding documents that prove every word I just said." I didn't know anything," Caleb stammered. "If something was wrong, it was Isabella's idea. I didn't know the details. Didn't know the details of stealing money in my name. Didn't know the details of fabricating a mental illness I never had. Isabella said it was legal, that since you lived with us, we were entitled to those benefits. And the blog? Was that legal too, lying publicly about my mental health for profit? Mom, I never read the blog. Isabella handled those things. Caleb, do you know the difference between you and me? What? When I make a mistake, I own it. You, on the other hand, always find someone else to blame. Mom, please, we can work this out. No, Caleb, we can't. This will be settled in court. I hung up and turned to Richard. When can we file the charges? The legal filings were completed by Tuesday morning. Attorney Daniel Collins had worked through the night, preparing everything: tax fraud, embezzlement, defamation, identity theft, and elder abuse. A legal arsenal strong enough to leave Caleb and Isabella cornered. But before they got served, I still had one final card to play. Are you sure you want to make this public? Richard asked as he checked the recording equipment in my apartment. The people who donated money believing Isabella's lies deserve to know the truth, I replied. We decided to go live on social media. Within 2 hours, over 50,000 viewers had registered to watch. My story had captured nationwide attention. We're live, Richard said. I looked straight into the camera. Hello, I'm Kimberly Brooks, and today I'm going to share information that will completely change what you thought you knew about my family. I held up a printed copy of Isabella's blog. For years, my son and daughter-in-law have lied about my health for financial gain. This is the blog Isabella created, called Living with Kimberly. In it, she wrote that I suffer from dementia, that I'm aggressive, and that I require constant medical care. None of that is true. As you can see, I am perfectly lucid. I manage my own finances, I live independently, and I make all my own decisions. I read aloud one of the entries. Today, Kimberly forgot where she left her medication and accused me of hiding it. It's hard to stay calm when the illness makes her unpredictable. That entry was dated the exact day I was in New York signing a real estate investment deal. The live comments exploded, thousands of people expressing outrage. But the lies go even further, I continued. Using those fabricated stories, they claimed false medical deductions, collected elderly care subsidies that never existed, and accepted donations from hundreds of people who believed I was truly sick. I held up the tax records. In total, they obtained about $150,000 by lying about my mental health. My phone started ringing nonstop. It was Caleb, no doubt watching the live stream in panic. I held the phone up to the camera. I see my son is calling, probably asking me to stop this broadcast. Let's hear him out, shall we? I put him on speaker. Mom, please stop. You're destroying our lives. Hello, Caleb, I said clearly. Right now, over 50,000 people are watching. Is there anything you'd like to say publicly about Isabella's blog and the money you both made lying about my health? Mom, are you broadcasting this live? Turn it off right now. Why would I? Are you afraid people will hear the truth? It's all Isabella's fault. I didn't know anything about the blog. She handled everything. The comment section exploded. No one could believe he was throwing his wife under the bus live on air. Caleb, do you admit that Isabella lied about my condition? I don't know what to say. Mom, please stop this. And do you admit that the two of you took money by pretending I was sick? Answer me. It's simple, yes or no. Silence. Then Isabella's voice cut through the phone. Hang up. Don't say another word. I looked straight into the camera. Was that Isabella? Would you like to join the conversation? I'm sure the 50,000 people watching would love to hear your explanation. No! Isabella screamed. Caleb, hang up right now! Isabella, I said louder. Could you explain to everyone why you fabricated my illness? And how do you justify the money you earned from those lies? You have no right to destroy our lives like this, she shouted. No, right? After you destroyed mine for 5 years? We took care of you. We gave you a home. Isabella, I said, opening the blog page. Here you wrote that I was violent on March 15th. How do you explain that when I was in Miami that day meeting with my investment advisor? I have receipts, photos, and witnesses. Those details don't matter. They don't matter when you lie about someone's health. You left. You snuck out of the house like a thief. I left because I overheard your midnight call with Caleb, planning to send me to a nursing home without my consent. That was for your own good. For my good, or for your convenience. The line went dead. The live chat exploded with virtual applause and thousands of shares. I looked into the lens, my voice calm and steady. As you can see, it's hard to keep lying when faced with real evidence. This story isn't just about me, it's about countless older people exploited by the very ones they trusted most. Tomorrow, my attorneys will officially file charges against Caleb, Michael, Turner, and Isabella Marie Turner for fraud, embezzlement, and defamation. Every dollar they gained through deception will be returned to the organizations and individuals who donated in good faith. But more important than legal justice is moral justice. I want my story to serve as a warning to everyone. Never let anyone strip away your dignity, no matter your age or how vulnerable you might feel. Thank you all for standing with me today. I'll keep you updated as the case moves forward. The live broadcast ended with more than 80,000 viewers watching. My phone immediately flooded with messages, words of support, interview requests, and stories from seniors living through the same kind of betrayal. But the message that brought me the most satisfaction came about an hour later. The crowdfunding platform had confirmed that Isabella's account was permanently shut down and all remaining funds were frozen. Justice was finally beginning to take shape. 6 months later, I was sitting on the balcony of my penthouse, enjoying breakfast while reading the newspaper. The front page of the Chicago Tribune carried the headline, "Couple sentenced to prison for defrauding. Elderly woman." Caleb was sentenced to 2 years in prison. Isabella, as the mastermind, received 3.5 years and a $50,000 fine, along with mandatory community service at a nursing home after serving her sentence. Justice had been fully served, but the most satisfying part wasn't their punishment. It was what I had built from my newfound freedom. The Kimberly Brooks Foundation for Senior Protection had already helped more than 200 seniors who faced abuse or exploitation like I once did. We established a helpline, offered free legal services, and created a financial literacy program for the elderly. My story had even inspired new state legislation, strengthening laws against elder abuse and protecting vulnerable adults. But the most important thing was that I had rediscovered myself. At 71, I learned how to dance, took art classes, and traveled to places I had only dreamed of visiting. I had real friends, an active life, and a renewed purpose. My phone rang, breaking my thoughts. It was Patricia Lynn Morgan, my real estate broker turned dear friend. "Kimberly, did you see the news?" "I just read the verdict." "Perfect," I said. "No, not that. Did you hear what Isabella is trying to do now? She tried to sell her story to a TV network." I burst out laughing. "Really? Which story? The one about defrauding her mother-in-law and ending up in prison?" "Exactly. She pitched it as a show about the dark side of social media and how online justice ruined her life. The producers turned it down right after checking the facts. Apparently, They prefer protagonists people can actually sympathize with. That afternoon, I had an important meeting. My publisher came over to finalize the manuscript of the book I'd been writing based on my own life. As we reviewed the last pages, my editor looked up and said, "Kimberly, your story is powerful because it's real. There's no magic revenge, no fantasy. Ending just a woman who refused to remain a victim." I smiled. That's exactly the message I want to share. Have you thought about reaching out to Caleb now that he's in prison? I've thought about it, I admitted, but I have nothing to say to him unless he shows real change. Empty apologies can't rebuild broken trust. If he truly wants redemption when he's released, he'll have to start by fully admitting what he did. No excuses, no blaming Isabella, and he'll have to understand the damage he caused. Even then, things will never go back to what they were. That night, while preparing dinner in my sleek modern kitchen, I reflected on how far I'd come. The woman who once slipped out the back door in fear had been a terrified victim. The woman cooking now was a survivor, strong and whole. My story had proven something many forget. It's never too late to reclaim your life. I learned that kindness doesn't mean letting others walk over you, that family love is no excuse for abuse, that aging doesn't equal weakness, and that sometimes the best revenge is simply living well. A new message popped up on my phone. It was from a 68-year-old woman in Seattle who had seen my interview. "Mrs. Brooks, your story gave me the courage to stand up to my family. After 2 years of humiliation, I finally defended myself. Thank you for reminding me that I deserve respect." Messages like that came every day. Each one reminded me why telling my story had been worth it. That evening, I had dinner on the balcony, watching the city lights stretch to the horizon. I raised my glass quietly to all the women who had found their voices again. Caleb and Isabella thought they were throwing me away like old furniture, but in truth, they had set me free to become the strongest version of myself. On my desk sat a photo of my late husband. As I did every night, I whispered to him, "My love, I know you'd be proud. I didn't let them turn me into a victim. I protected my dignity and helped others do the same. Before going to bed, I wrote in my journal, I don't regret adopting Caleb when he was a child. I only regret not realizing sooner that kindness should never come at the cost of self-destruction." The next morning, I had another interview scheduled, another chance to share my story, to help someone who might feel invisible in their own life. Because, in the end, I finally understood my true purpose wasn't to be the perfect mother or the forgiving mother-in-law, but simply to be Kimberly Brooks, a woman whole, independent, and free. There are wounds you can't see, only feel, and they cut deepest when they come from the people you once trusted most. It took me years to learn that love cannot exist without respect, and kindness can't heal those who choose to hurt you. Family isn't just the people you share blood with. It's the ones who hold your hand when the world turns away. I'm telling this story not to reopen old pain, but to remind us all that, no matter our age, we have the right to stand up, to say enough, and to start over with dignity intact. And what about you? What do you believe makes a true family blood, or understanding and respect? Share your thoughts below. I truly believe that every story, every opinion, can become a light for someone who feels lost. And if you'd like to keep hearing more stories about strength, forgiveness, and compassion, stay with me because there are many more journeys waiting to be told, for every heart brave enough to believe and begin again.